The show debuts October 7th, part of the Westwood One Podcast One network. Westwood One, of course, doing a great job with all their shows, and the name of the show is called Truth with Consequence. And like I said, debuts October 7th, and the man behind that show, he joins us now, Vince Russo. Vince, how are you today?
Dave, how you doing, man?
What's up?
Glad to be here. Glad to be here, man. Glad to meet you. We've never had the privilege of meeting before. Of course, I'm eager to talk to my old paisan, Bubba, but it's great to be here on the show.
Well, we really appreciate it because you're right. We've never had you on as a guest. And my first question to you is, first of all, talk about the new show that's coming up on the Westwood One Podcast Network, Truth with Consequences.
Yeah, this show is going to be different than any other show, and I'll tell you why. There are so many false narratives out there about me, and let's face it, 100% of them have been put out there by the dirt sheet writers and the Dave Meltzers of the world and people like that don't like me, who just make stuff up. I mean, it's blatantly that simple. They just make stuff up. They've been painting me in a certain light for decades now. And every time they make up shit, I say, bro, come on my show. Have a man-to-man discussion with me because you're full of crap. Come on my show and be a man. Nobody from the dirt sheet world will ever confront me face-to-face, one-on-one, because at the end of the day, when that happens, we're going to have to talk about facts. And these guys don't want to talk about facts. So one individual by the name of Matt Kuhn basically stepped up and said, I'll do it. I'll be happy to come on your show, as somebody that has worked with, Wade Keller and people like that before, and I'll ask you all the tough questions. And I welcome that with open arms because, listen, bro, I mean, Bubba can tell you, I am born, raised, bred New York through and through. I got myself in a lot of trouble in the wrestling business for telling the truth. It would have been easy for me to lie, but I told the truth, and the truth is what always got me in trouble because people don't want to hear the truth. So now we're going to have, I hate to use the expression, even though I really don't, we're going to have a dirt sheet writer across from me, and he's going to bring up, basically the misconceptions and the narratives that have been painted about me by these people over the last 2 decades.
Vince, it seems like, and by your own admission, you've had problems with many people along the way, whether you say it's a Dave Meltzer, whether it's a Mike Johnson with, from quote-unquote dirt sheets, whether you've had a problem with Jim Cornette, whether you've had issues with Cody with All In. It seems like the common denominator in all these issues seems to be you. Why are you always embroiled in all of this controversy?
Well, first of all, Bubba, you have to understand, I don't disagree with anything you just said. But, Bubba, you got to understand something. Everyone who has an issue with me, everyone who has a problem with me, because it's not the other way around. I don't have a problem with these people. I have a problem when they lie and they don't tell the truth. Then I have a problem. But outside of that, the problem is not me. The problem is always from their side. And thus lies the problem, Bubba. Bro, you know how it is. I'm from New York. You got an issue with me. Let's have a conversation and let's talk about it. That's the first thing I say every single time. I put out there publicly, Jim Cornette, let's go on pay-per-view. You and me, bro, a one-on-one discussion like two grown adults. I don't want a penny. Every single dime could go to the Cauliflower Alley Club, wherever you want it to go. Me and you, face-to-face with the moderator. And nobody will ever do that with me, bro. They will never do that with me. And the only reason I can guess is they're full of shit. Because if I'm willing to have a conversation with you, I have nothing to hide. I don't have skeletons in my closet. There's nothing I want to hide. But when I keep saying to the Dave Meltzers of the world and the Jim Cornettes and whoever else you mentioned, bro, you have a problem with me. Let's have a conversation man to man. And nobody comes in my door, and they just continue to go on and on and on with their lies. Bro, we caught Mike Johnson red-handed yesterday. We were doing castrating the marks, red-handed in a blatant lie where I'm like, okay, bro, let's stop for a minute. Let's show the proof. Let's show the facts so you will see the guy is blatantly lying. He's welcome to come on my show and state his case. But, Bubba, when they never do, I mean, who's the issue? Is the issue me or is the issue them?
How can you have any type of face-to-face with a guy like a Jim Cornette? And I don't want to go too deep into this, but this did seem really wonky and weird. How can you have a face-to-face with a guy that you have a restraining order against?
Well, Bubba, that was before that. I mean, that was before all that. Before all that happened, I mean, I had put out there publicly, YouTube videos and whatnot. Bro, let's just end this. I don't understand. So, yeah, obviously now, Bubba, I couldn't do that legally. Bro, but I'll tell you this right now, Bubba, I would waive that restraining order if he agreed to do it. I'll tell you that right now. If Jim Cornette said, you know what, I am going to have that face-to-face with Russo, I would waive that restraining order in order for that to happen.
But here's the thing, and I'll just use Jim Cornette as an example. Like, it's one thing to disagree about something or even dislike something strongly. Were you completely surprised by the downright disdain and hate that came from Jim Cornette?
Dave, I got to be honest with you. Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I worked with thousands of people in the wrestling business. I can count on one hand, like, people I don't like. When I say don't like, it means we're oil and vinegar. And it's like where they're from and their background and their beliefs compared to mine. There's a handful of people I will never get along with. I absolutely, without a doubt, don't hate any of them. I don't hate Jim Cornette. I don't hate any of them. And at the end of the day, I mean, Dave, you're absolutely right. Bro, I was a guy that wrote a television show. Period. End of story. I got paid every company I went to bring in the biggest ratings I could and get as many people to watch the show as possible. That's what my job description was. And for people to hate me because you don't agree with my wrestling philosophy or you didn't like the shows I wrote, to me that's absolutely ridiculous, because there is not one person on this planet that I could tell you I hate and I disdain, including Jim Cornette. If I felt that way about him, I would never say publicly, bro, meet me one-on-one and let's have a public conversation. I would never say that if I hated the man.
Vince, why are you the scapegoat for so many things? Why are you the scapegoat for the WCW WCW going out of business? Why are you the scapegoat for TNA not being on Spike? Why do you find yourself always in the position to be the bad guy?
Bubba, I think there's three reasons for that. I really think there's three reasons. And if you go back and you look at my history, anybody will find when I was the head writer at the WWE, my name barely got brought up. Barely got brought up, bro. Like, I was doing my job as the head writer. We were doing great numbers. But you couldn't put a face to the name. Here's the first thing that happened, Bubba. When I was at WCW and they were putting such ridiculous pressure on me for ratings, as a New Yorker, bro, I said, fine, bro, screw it. I'll go on TV and do it myself, because my attitude was, and I'm just going to be blunt, my attitude was, bro, I'll cut a better promo than 75% of the people on the show. So screw you. You want ratings? I'll do it myself. Now, Bubba, when I went on TV, I made the decision. I know what people think about New Yorkers. I've been stereotyped my whole life as a New Yorker. So what I said was to myself, you know what, bro? I'm going to give people exactly what they want. I am going to magnify, my persona and the New York persona 1 million times over, bro, to make these people absolutely hate me. So when I went on television, bro, that was my plan. You want to think a certain way about New Yorkers? Well, bro, I'm going to let you think that way. And I was over the top in my angles with Flair and my angles with Goldberg and the things that I did. Bro, I was so convincing, people believed that was me. And they could not separate Vince Russo, the husband, the family man, the hard worker, with Vince Russo, this arrogant, brash New Yorker on TV. To this day, they believe it, bro. To this day. Number two, look at the people that hate me, bro. Look at where I'm getting blamed about WCW and TNA and this, that. The dirt sheet world. Why, bro? Because the dirt sheet world never wanted professional wrestling to be sports entertainment. Dave Meltzer rates fake fights on a star system, for crying out loud. They're fake fights, you absolute buffoon. So the fact that I wrote... Stop. Don't call it fake. There's nothing fake about... what I... No. But you can't use a word that doesn't properly describe what we do. There's nothing fake about the physicality. If you want to say predetermined, that's fine. But you got to give it the respect that it deserves. And Bubba, fine. Thank you. Thank you for stating that, and thank you for stopping me. Scripted. I'll use the word scripted. But obviously there's zero disrespect. But the fact of the matter is, to me, it was entertainment. And guys, I grew up on the Valiant Brothers, Lou Albano, Chief Jay Strongbow. These are the characters I grew up with. From the time I was a kid, I loved this sport, but I looked at it as entertainment. So the fact that I wrote an entertainment show more than I did a show with 20-minute 5-star matches, right there, because of the disagreement in philosophy, the dirt sheet writers absolutely hated me. And the third reason is the truth. The truth. I do a podcast on the Realm Network 5 days a week. I don't bring these guys on my show. And I know why other guys, big names in the podcasting business, I know why they bring those guys on their show. Because they want their audience. Because they want to get over with that demographic, the hardcore fans and the people that read dirt sheets. They want that audience. And you know what, bro? It is stupid for me from a business point of view to alienate those people and not kick their backsides and not bring them on my show so they bring their audience with them. But I'm sorry, bro. I'm not going to give those guys the credibility. I catch them in lie after lie after lie, and I call them out on it on my show, Castrating the Marks, and I tell the truth. And the more and more I do that, the more and more they literally try to end my career.
All right, so you're right. There's probably a lot of fans that take exception to the sports entertainment aspect of it. I'm one of those fans. I'm a hardcore, old school pro wrestling fan. So when I hear sports entertainment, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. And probably there's a lot of fans that point the finger at you when they hear that terminology. So why doesn't it go back to somebody like a Vince McMahon that refuses to say the word wrestling and only uses the term sports entertainment? Why, when it comes to sports entertainment, people wave their finger at you but not do the same to somebody like a Vince McMahon?
Well, because Vince McMahon isn't out there. And Vince McMahon doesn't make himself available to the audience like I do. I mean, I'm out there on social media. I talk to the people on the brand. I make myself accessible. Vince McMahon is never going to do that. So when it comes down to, and quite frankly, like Dave, I'll be honest with you, whether it was pro wrestling like what you love or whether it was more sports entertainment, what I love, Vince McMahon wouldn't have cared what it was. All Vince McMahon cared about was the end result. And all Vince McMahon cared about was the ratings and how much money he was making. So when those ratings started going up week after week after week in the Attitude Era, from a business perspective, that's what Vince McMahon rolled with it. And Vince McMahon went with it because he was making more money. Dave, I say this all the time. I wasn't writing the television show for me. I wasn't writing, not everything I wrote during the Attitude Era was for me. I was closely following the ratings week to week, minute by minute, and I saw what the people were watching and what the people were turning off, and we adjusted on a week-to-week basis, eliminating what they weren't watching and feeding what they were watching. The audience at that time was dictating the show to us. They don't do that today. That doesn't happen today. But to answer your question, I'm out there and Vince McMahon isn't.
Okay, fair enough. Now, yesterday, knowing that you were going to be coming on, we kind of went to the nation and asked, them to come up with some questions that we might be able to ask on today's show. And most of the people that came through and tweeted at us were asking about WCW. How much accountability do you take on the fall of WCW?
I don't take any accountability because I base everything on numbers. I base everything on facts. I don't base anything on people's opinions. When you look at the ratings, when I came into WCW from October 10th to January 10th, 3 months, when I had full reign to do what I wanted to do, and I was breaking down the old foundation and we were building a new one. We were getting the blocks in place. We were getting, the athletes positioned where we wanted to. It was a building process. When you look at those first 3 months, and they're out there for anybody to look at, okay, the ratings went up every single week. Now, after 3 months, when politics came into play, I went home. The 3 months that I was home, the ratings went back to the same exact place they were before Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara started. All those numbers are out there. I could not say them if people would look them up and say, no, Vince, you're lying. They're all out there. When I was brought back to WCW, not having a choice in the matter, I was teamed up with Eric Bischoff. From day one, Eric Bischoff and I did not get along. I no longer had free reign. I now had to literally work with and deal with Eric Bischoff. And listen, I think Eric Bischoff is a genius in many, 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 many more areas than I am, without a shadow of a doubt, but not when it comes to writing a TV show. To me, that is not Eric's strong suit. He'd like to think it is, but the fact of the matter is it isn't. Eric knows how to make money, and what he did at WCW, you can never take away from him. He beat freaking Vince McMahon. He did a phenomenal job, but I'm sorry, man, when it comes to creative, that's what I do. So my last 6 months at WCW, I was working with Eric Bischoff. I was not allowed to do what I really wanted to do because it would have been an argument every week, and I just didn't want to deal with it, to be honest with you. And on top of that, if you're going to blame a writer for the downfall of a multi-million-dollar company, then you're just an idiot. Then literally, you don't have a clue if you actually think that a guy that literally wrote there for 9 months, that's all it was, that a guy that literally brought down the entire company, you have to be an absolute moron to believe that narrative.
But Vince, I'd like to take a part of what your answer just now, and I want to dissect it a little bit and give a different perspective because I witnessed this with my own eyes. So you say that you were in charge of creative, and then when Eric came in, you had to work together. And you said Eric has done a lot of great things, but being in charge of creative was not one of his strong points, or writing a show wasn't one of his strong points. Now, fast forward to TNA, when you and Eric had to work together, I was in that room also. So I saw how the creative process went. I saw the interaction with you and Eric. You came up with shows from scratch, meaning you would have a blank piece of paper in front of you every week, and you'd put your ideas on paper, and then you would bring them to the table, and I believe that we would filter through your ideas. I think that Eric served as a good filter for ideas. Maybe he wasn't that good with a blank piece of paper in front of his face, but I believe that he was able to take ideas and make them better, or take ideas and put them to the side. So what I witnessed with my own eyes was, do you think that you did as good of a job as you could do with people being critical of your creative?
Bubba, that is a great question, bro. And that's why literally as a shoot guys, I am so happy to be doing this show, because Bubba and I go way back, but Bubba has never been afraid to say anything to me. And we've had many conversations like this, so I love being able to answer this stuff. Bubba, you got to understand early on, okay, bro? When I worked for Vince McMahon, Vince was the same way, Bubba. Vince cannot write a wrestling show on a blank piece of paper. He can't. And that's not a knock on Vince. I mean, bro, we all can't do things great. I don't know how to make money. I should be a multimillionaire by now. I suck at business. I suck at knowing how to make money. Vince McMahon was the same way. So, Bubba, I was trained early on. Okay, bro? I had to throw idea after idea after idea after idea at Vince McMahon, bro, almost like a machine gun. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I did, bro. Non-stop throwing Vince McMahon ideas. And then, Vince would sit back and, some he liked, some he didn't. So I learned early on, Bubba, not to get my feelings hurt, because I would have not existed in that job if I would have got hot every time Vince McMahon didn't like something. Bubba, you got to understand my relationship with Eric at WCW and my relationship with Eric at TNA and the structure of the job was completely different. Like, in other words, at WCW, bro, a lot of what Eric used to do was be the Monday morning quarterback. We would talk about stuff. First of all, our roles were never determined. When Brad Siegel put us together, Brad Siegel never said to me, Eric Bischoff is your boss, you're answering to Eric Bischoff. He never said anything like that to me. He never really set the guidelines. So, I really didn't know what I was responsible for and what Eric was responsible for. But I can tell you that first 6 months, bro, when we really didn't know each other, it was a lot of the armchair quarterbacking, where, I would send Eric the shows at WCW. He would greenlight them, yeah. And then, bro, on Tuesday morning, he would start picking them apart. And that really pissed me off, because I would say, bro, you were in the process when we talked about this. So, I don't understand. You green-lighted what we talked about. Now, after the fact, you're going to criticize the show. So by the time we went to TNA, bro, I had already had a history with Eric Bischoff. And Bubba, I got to tell you, one thing that you weren't privy to was the meetings prior to a meeting in Orlando, when myself and Ed Ferrara and Conrad would be in a room with Eric, just the four of us.
Just for clarity, you don't mean Conrad, you mean Matt Conway.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Matt Conway.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't want our listeners to be confused.
Yeah, you weren't there for those meetings, bro. When it was just the four of us in that room. So, bro, by the time we got to Orlando, myself and Conway and Ferrara, we had probably already changed and altered what we wanted to do because we wanted to make Eric happy, bro. We wanted everybody to be happy. But at the end of the day, if he wasn't in that room, would we have done things differently? Yeah, bro, we probably would have.
But back to my original question.
Go ahead.
Do you think that you did a good enough job taking into account other people being critical? And when I say critical, I don't mean it in a negative way. Being critical of your ideas. Because I can tell you what I witnessed with my own eyes. When we would sit at that table and you would lay out the TV show, if anybody had something to say, your body language told me that you took it personally.
Okay, Bubba, fair enough. But if the body language told you that it wasn't taking it personally. I'll tell you exactly what it was, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying at all. Bro, I would take offense if it was somebody in that meeting that didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I mean, yes, I would take offense to that. If it was you or an Eric or, a Pat Kenny or whoever, no, bro, you guys know what you're talking about. Here's what you saw, Bubba, and this is the God-honest truth. Bro, when I write a show and I bring that show to the table, it is tunnel vision. I have, 100%. I zeroed in on that show, and I know that day what we have to do and all the pre-tapes that are involved and explaining to the boys where we're going from this week to next week. So I am totally concentrated and centered on that show because when I get there, bro, I want to produce the best show I possibly can. So at that point, I'm locked into the show. So now when people are starting to throw around other ideas, bro, it's got nothing to do with taking it personally, but now it has to do with now I have to alter my game plan. This isn't what we came to the table with. Now we're changing it at the 12th hour. Bro, in all my experience in the wrestling business, when you change creative the day of, it is never going to be the best that it can because it's too late to dot the I's and cross the T's, and something's always going to get lost in the shuffle. Bro, when I watch WWE programming today, there is no doubt in my mind they're still writing that show on Monday. And writer A doesn't know what writer B is doing, and writer B doesn't know what C is doing because there's so many holes. So what you witnessed, bro, was not personal. What you witnessed was, holy shit, I was zoned in on this show. Now we're going to have to make these adjustments, and now I'm concerned that it's not going to be the best it could be. And I admit 1,000% to that, but it wasn't personal.
Do you feel that lately there have been some people to come to your defense? I know Ric Flair said that, he always gets the question, were you to blame for killing off WCW? And he said that WCW was dead long before you got there and you were just trying to survive. Do you feel like there have been some people to come to your defense lately?
Let me tell you something, Dave. I'll be honest with you. When you hear all these criticisms about me, very few of them come from people I worked with. Because the people I worked with, they know me, and they knew me personally, and they knew what kind of a person I was, and they were able to separate business from personal. Like, it was just business. So the people I worked with, very rarely do you hear criticisms. Now, those that do criticize me, Dave, I'll be honest with you, and it gets back to truth. And Bubba will tell you this. Bro, everybody wants to be a top guy. You know, everybody wants to be in the main event. Everybody wants to go over and be on last. Every single person on that roster, and rightfully so. Bro, you should not get in the wrestling business if you don't want to be the guy. So I'm dealing with a roster of, 50, 60 men and women that all want to be the guy. Now, I'm the guy that I've got to sit back, I've got to assess their talent, and I've got to see, and I've got to look at numbers, I got to look at ratings, and I got to figure out, okay, bro, who is the top guy? And, who is the mid-card guy? And who is going first? So if I had any friction with people in the business, it was telling them straight up, face to face, bro, I got to be honest with you. The numbers aren't dictating that you're a top guy. Every time your segment comes on, we fall off a couple of ratings points or whatever. That was my job, to tell them stuff they didn't want to hear. And there are some people, Dave, that fall in that category that can't separate personal from business. That was my job, bro. It had nothing to do with how I felt about you, whether I liked you. Bro, there were people in the business, Dave, at times that I was at war with, and they were main eventing because all I cared about was the ratings. So whether Shawn Michaels and myself were in a full-blown argument, that was not going to affect the show. That was not going to affect, Shawn being in the main event, because that was personal and business. So that's why all of these, all of these jabs and jars and putting WCW out of business and costing the TNA deal, those never come from people I work with. All of them are started by the dirt sheet writers, 99.9% of them.
Vince, so let's fast forward a little bit to modern day product. I know that you are critical of the storylines. I know you are critical about the way shows are written. And you being a guy that's been in charge of creative, I can understand you're very passionate about that. The one thing that you have been ultra critical about is the in-ring product, and you almost come across like you don't like modern day in-ring pro wrestling. You've said you don't like the acrobatic style and things like that. Obviously, you're old school. You grew up on the Valiants and the Lou Albanos and this Wild Samoans. I get it. Why don't you like the current in-ring product? And why haven't you been able to maybe expand your horizons to appreciate something different?
Bubba, that's a great question. And it's real simple, bro. It is. Bubba, listen, I never thought I'd say this, but this is the God-honest truth. I've been a fan of pro wrestling. I was probably 11 or 12. Bubba, we used to have the old UHF TVs. We only used to get ABC, CBS, and NBC. We had to rely on UHF channels. I'll never forget, bro, I was a 10-year-old, 11-year-old kid. I'm looking for something to watch on UHF, and, bro, right smack in front of my face were the Valiant Brothers and Lou Albano. And I stopped everything. And I'm like, what the frig is this? I fell in love with the wrestling business, bro. And decade after decade after decade. Bro, I tell everybody all the time, my favorite decade of professional wrestling was not the Attitude Era. That was not my favorite decade of wrestling. Bro, those early years of WrestleMania, WrestleMania 1 to 3 and, starting in 85, those were my golden years. I love that stuff way more than I did the Attitude Era. Bubba, it's this simple. I'm going to explain it to you. Bubba, I don't want to turn on a professional wrestling show and feel like I am going to see somebody get hurt. and feel like, bro, I am going to see somebody break a neck or break a back. That's not why I tune in. I don't watch MMA, bro. I don't watch MMA for that reason. I don't want to see somebody get hurt because, bro, you've got to understand it's also the age that I'm at. I've seen a lot of wrestlers now, bro, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, bro, that can't go anymore, and that it's hard for them to make a living. We just saw what happened with Paul Orndorff. Bro, the money runs out. So my whole thing is, guys, you have a window of where you're going to make money in wrestling. You got a window, bro. What you want to do is you want to expand that window and stay healthy and protect yourself as long as you possibly can, bro, to make as much money as you can. Because, bro, you're going to be in Paul Orndorff's shoes one day. And you're going to look back and you're going to be, my God, where did the money go? So I'm literally trying to smarten these guys up by saying, guys, it's a work. Like, it's the work. The whole idea is to work the audience and make them believe. You're doing stuff that is unnecessary. I don't like watching it because I saw the guy break his neck on TV from New Japan. I watched it. I don't want to see that, but on top of that, bro, I don't want you to be a Kamala. I don't want you to be a Paul Orndorff. You've got to make money in this business as long as you possibly can. So that's where I come from. Bubba, they can do whatever they want. I mean, I'm not a fan of what they do today, and I don't care whether they change it or not, to be honest with you. It doesn't affect me one bit. I don't like watching something where I think somebody's going to break their neck any second, and I know these guys are cutting their careers short because they're too young and they're full of piss and vinegar to understand that. And later on in life, bro, these guys are going to be in trouble. But nobody wants to hear that message, Bubba. Nobody. I don't care what they do. If it's not my cup of tea, I don't care. If I didn't have my podcast, bro, I wouldn't watch it. Like, it's that simple. I wouldn't watch it, but I have to watch it because it's my job and I get paid to watch it. So the fact of the matter is, whatever they do in that ring, I don't really care. I just think these guys should really start thinking about, like, their futures and down the road. I mean, my God, bro, look at Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels will make money in the wrestling business till he's 70 because he's a great entertainer. And he can go out there and talk, and he doesn't have to kill himself during matches, and he can continue to make money in 2018. That's my message, bro.
Well, first of all, I got to thank you so much for the time because we've had you on for a while. We could do a whole 3-hour show with you, for crying out loud. People definitely need to take a listen. It debuts October 7th, part of the Westwood One podcast network. It's called Truth with Consequences with Vince Russo, our guest today. Vince, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.